works, okay?
No, I'm not.
I'm just kidding.
Okay, good.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for listening to the Geek Garage podcast. I am your host, like usual, David. Sorry, I'm still here, and you don't get anyone else. However, I do have an amazing guest today for episode 20. We are going to be talking about animation. Talkin Animation with an animator. Ding, 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 ding.
Just me and you in here.
Yeah, it's really too bad that like I don't have a sound effect board that's like ooga or like the rap horn like
That would be fantastic.
to introduce you, be like Katie is in the house. That would be. I mean,
Next
I could
time.
just download an app on my phone.
Please do.
Yeah.
I feel bad now. We're ill prepared.
Whatever. I mean, I just think of this shit at the most inconvenient time, and that's usually the way it works.
That's okay.
But I mean, making the noise with my mouth, that's what she said, is usually what I do best. So, but yes, we do have Katie Callahan, Mrs. Callahan.
Oh,
I'm just
My
kidding.
mom's here. It's past her
No.
bedtime.
Oh yeah, it is like 8 o'clock.
8:15.
She is a animator. She went to school for animation, and she currently is working in the field doing animation. And we are going to pick Oh my God! Pick her brain. Pick her whore brain. No,
Fantastic.
we're gonna pick her brain today about how she became an animator and just kind of get some insight into the industry of animation. Kind of what goes into animating either digital shorts or. I'm really sorry if you can currently hear my dog drinking water. He's very rude. What an ass.
It's great timing, though.
Yeah, it really is. It doesn't matter. But yeah, we're gonna cover all kinds of fun shit tonight. So let's jump right into it. Katie, do you want to kind of go into like where you went to school, how you decided on going to school for animation? Maybe some of because you've been nominated for a few things. You got a few awards in school as well. So go ahead and just take us through a short 2 to 3 minute journey of your educational background. No pressure.
Educational background. Okay, well, I went to school at the Art Institute of Tennessee in Nashville, which is the official long-ass name.
Yeah.
And I got a degree in media arts and animation.
And I bet it only cost you $5 million.
God, it really did.
God,
I'll be paying student loans until
the end of time.
Probably 2 generations after me, yeah.
It's are they private loans? Did you have to do private loans?
Yeah.
Okay,
It was
well,
a lot.
yeah. I was so excited the other day to find out that your federal loans die when you die.
Oh, great.
So yeah, all you need to do is die, and then you don't have to worry about them anymore.
I'll take
I mean, that's
that.
the same with your private loans too, but those get passed on to your family.
Yeah. They're excited.
Anyways, so you went to school for digital animation.
I did. And to add on to that, I went to school before that in Cookeville. I don't know if you know that.
Was it high school?
No, it was college.
No, I didn't. Well, it wasn't. Was it tech?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
It was tech. I went for music performance, which
Cool.
kind of plays into animation, so that's why I brought it up. Went for that. Life happened. Almost graduated.
Mm-hmm.
I was like a semester away.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and
That's a
then
bummer.
I just moved away. Life happened, but I ended up doing newspapers after that, and just got so burnt out. So one day when I was sitting there midday, a commercial came on for the Art Institute, and
Back when TV was
That's
around,
right.
back when people watched the television.
actual TV and stayed around for the commercials.
Yeah.
It was for video games, which I love video games. That's always been a part of my life.
Yeah. Oh, that's one thing that this podcast is lacking is more video game episodes. I think we've only done maybe like 1 or 2.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah.
And went in, they really didn't have anything for video games. So I kind of moved into the direction of animation. But that's fine, because when I went to school for music, I wanted to do movie soundtracks. And something that really got me interested and even put the thought in my mind was Finding Nemo. Okay. That movie's just badass, period.
Sure.
But all of the layers and depth in the ocean and how they got those particles in there, It was just beautiful. So I think that's really what allowed me to go in that direction.
So just Finding Nemo is just...
It's my inspiration.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to watch that movie and love it. Because
Yeah, well, I mean, if
it's
you haven't
life-changing.
seen it, then it's your own damn fault, and you should just jump in oncoming traffic.
Pretty much.
So you're currently working in the field. You work for Channel 4,
Channel 4
here in
WSMV
Nashville,
in Nashville.
for the people that do not live in Nashville.
That's right.
I don't think we have a whole lot of listeners that don't live here in Nashville, but yes, hopefully after this episode we will have lots more listeners.
It's just gonna blow up.
Hello, Katie's family and friends. Thank you for downloading this show. I really appreciate it.
My family and friends are awesome, and I would not be here without them.
I bet they are. I mean, anyone that's friends or family with Katie is just awesome by default.
You're the best.
They are the opposite of the punters from the New England Patriots.
Oh. They don't deflate their balls.
Right, yes.
They're
their balls are firm.
and taut.
Tell me about your what do you do for work?
Channel 4. I'm a graphic artist. I'm actually senior graphic artist now, and it took me a couple of months to get there. It was a baby department as is.
Mm-hmm.
So it just took a little bit of hard work and luck and timing. But
Sure.
we handle all of the daily graphics there. We actually just made a new graphics package, which is what our producers create their own graphics with. So they can just plug information into these templates that we created, and you have all like the supers at the bottom, which is what the names are. We did the time and temp, so some cool things.
Cool.
A lot of specific things. News is hard because it's news.
Sure.
You know, nobody wants that in your face on a daily basis, but the turnaround on graphics is cool, and that's something that I think is preparing me for the future. Creating that quickly and really trusting my gut.
Cool.
More than I could say for school projects.
Yeah, I've had the same experience with school projects where they're sort of cool and they come in handy, like, you know, getting familiar with working with different people other than yourself for group projects and stuff.
Right.
But it's all like hypothetical stuff that you really don't run into.
And you don't care about it. You know, when it's on
Yeah.
TV and
I mean, it's
thousands upon thousands of
IRL.
people are watching it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so cool to make something the same day and then look at the TV to your left and see it come on the screen. Like, that's pretty satisfying.
And that's a great segue into some of your accolades. Why don't you tell me about some of the stuff that you've been nominated for and awards that you've gotten and stuff
The very
like that.
first thing ties in with school projects. It was Best in Show, which is just a school
Like the movie?
award. What?
Like the movie?
Sure.
You've never seen Best in Show?
No.
It's not an animated movie, but
Oh, that's why. It's really just the best of what you scrape together at the end of your college career.
Mm-hmm.
And it's supposed to be a cumulative showing of what you've done and learned, but it's really the last 2 or 3 months and how much you can cram in.
Sure. Okay.
Because the growth between beginning and end of your college career is, you know, there's no contest.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I can attest to that.
So it's really just pushing towards the end, and then actually Best in Show at Art Institute, we have an opportunity to show our portfolio, and like professionals can come out.
Mm-hmm.
They give you business cards, you give them theirs, you never hear back from them, stuff like that.
Not like you're speaking from personal experience
Not
or
at all.
anything. So you also it says here in my notes Gold Student Addy Award.
Yeah, Addy is like the advertising awards, and that was totally local. Actually, the people that I worked with like 4 other guys, and we did this project for school. It was for one class. We had to create a commercial from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
And my buddy Chase worked at Oakley at the time, and he loved making those sunglasses. He was like, why don't we do this? And we made this Oakley commercial. It's kind of like the inside, you know, when you order glasses online and you're choosing all the custom details and stuff.
Sure.
We were the computer and the robot that was creating your custom order.
Okay.
So it was showing like the O being painted and the...
I know exactly what you're talking about. I remember you either posting this on Facebook
I
or
did.
posting a link to it, and I went to go watch it.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
It's still on LinkedIn, I think.
As well it should be, because it was amazing.
Thank you.
And then you got Emmy nomination?
I did.
This was very recently.
Oh
right?
my gosh, yes. They announced it in November, and I felt bad because my work, it's supposed to be from June to June. So I entered it at the end of June, and I'd only...
Of 2017?
Yes. Okay. I'd been part-time and temp, filling in when people were sick until about April, mid-April. And then that's when our department started shifting. Some people left, and I started working full-time. So I only really had May and June work. So when I entered it, one of my producers was like, you should do this. And I did. I didn't think that I would even get nominated. So to get nominated and get nominated with one other person, so I had a 50-50 chance, was terrifying, but also really cool, because they set my work that high. It's peer judged.
Sure.
People that enter judge it, and I think you can sign up for that, but I didn't. So we found that out in November, and then we went to the Emmys in January. Couple weeks ago.
Okay.
And that was awesome. I got to see a whole lot of people that I watched on TV when I was little, because I've lived here my whole life. And I did not win, but I will next year.
Yeah, you will. I can see it with my third eye.
That's right.
It's coming.
Everything I do at work now, I'm like, okay, I gotta make.
All you do is win, no matter what.
Yes.
You got animation on your mind.
It's on repeat.
You can never get enough.
Yes, we need to do a parody of that so I can have that playing.
For sure. Yeah. If I was better at audio engineering,
I know some guys.
You do?
Yeah.
That's great, because I am terrible at it. I can barely edit this darn podcast. Okay, so let's. We got a couple segments for you today. First segment is I know we just talked about Katie, but segment number 1 is the story of Katie. She's going to talk about. She did kind of, I have you down talking about what made you want to be an animator, and you already kind of sort of covered that.
I did. Got ahead of myself.
Is there anything else that you wanted to elaborate on, since this was kind of one of our bullet points?
No, we touched music, state of
and
depression
music touched
with
you.
Newspaper, yes it did. And then commercial, Nemo. I think that's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's me.
I mean, you really don't need much else.
No, you're right.
And the next bullet point, tell us some of the projects you've accomplished since you've graduated. You have done that for the most part. I mean, is there anything else that you would like to mention that you've done, either for your personal benefit or for in the professional field, that you haven't mentioned yet?
No.
Is there anything?
Side projects? No. I got my job with Channel 4 a month and a half maybe after I ended school, because I just plugged away at it, and finally, actually, my exit counselor emailed me that job. So
nice.
I'm glad that I answered, because that was good timing and helpful, and it's so hard to put in extra time with family, and then my commute time is like an hour, so I get home at 7:15.
Oh,
I'm just drained after that. We get up at 6:30, 7 o'clock.
That's terrible. Why do you have to be at work so late?
So late?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a 9 to 6. And traffic. I live in Murfreesboro, and it's in Nashville. So you leave early, leave late, stuck in traffic.
Oh my God.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah, I am very much familiar with Nashville traffic. Here's something that we haven't really covered yet in the story of Katie. What are some of your short-term and long-term goals as a animator?
Good question.
Yeah.
I actually do have these mapped out. And it kind of ties in with unfinished projects and whatnot, because right now I am starting to teach myself compositing, which is just overlapping elements and adding elements, making it look real, and diving more into live action and special effects, because that's really where we are in Nashville and where the industry is locally.
Sure.
So I would like to do that and get into an actual studio.
Okay.
Actually, Georgia, have you heard of them?
Georgia.
They're the company that handles The Walking
I know
Dead.
this state.
Right, Georgia. Well, the animation or the company.
Okay, which is also in Georgia.
Georgia, yeah.
Yeah, I know that's a very hot place, especially right now for shooting.
The Walking Dead.
Yeah, that's
a lot of things actually.
Yeah, a lot of Marvel stuff gets shot in Georgia now because I don't know if it's cheaper to shoot there rather than the L.A. or New York area or whatever.
Probably less people. The weather's probably nice and mild most of the time, especially the further south you go.
Yeah.
I would love to work with them for a little bit.
Yeah.
I think just being around people. The guys that I work with are nice. We work in a square, and we have our backs to each other. Actually visited Five Stone last year, which is just a local animation company. They do a lot of cool things.
Cool.
And that's how they are. It's 5 and 5, and they just face each other. And I think that's probably the best way.
Yeah.
You know, so you're not isolated. And if you have a question, people are easily accessible.
Yeah, that's. I think that. I mean, it's not just computer related stuff. It's everything, but especially computer related stuff. You are constantly going to other people to get them to look at what you're working on, to get a second set of eyes,
right.
Or vice versa. And just for various other reasons, it just makes more sense to have less boundaries between you and the people that you work with.
Right.
Just more literal and figurative transparency, I guess. I don't know if transparency is a accurate word to use, but
that's good. I think that's a good point to make.
Yeah. Finger guns, because no one can see. Except you, so
I can see it, and that was worth it.
Well, we'll take a picture of finger guns and post it on Instagram.
That'll
be our Instagram photo.
I'll write that down so we don't forget it.
Cool, excellent. All right, so we're gonna move on to segment 2, which is titled "Becoming an Animator."
Oh my!
Yeah, I can't do a good echo, and that was just really lame. And
good.
I bet we lost everyone.
Again, we need to get to your sound machine.
Or at least the rapper horn.
When's your birthday?
It passed. It was in January.
I missed it. I'm happy belated.
So, we are going to kind of get your opinion about what it takes to become an animator, and it'll be a little bit of insight into people that could be listening, that could be interested in becoming an animator or going to school for animation, or just learning a little bit more about the process. So, in your opinion, what kind of person do you think enjoys or would enjoy learning about becoming an animator?
Yeah, that's a great question. Anybody that enjoys drawing, that's a great basis. Even in 3D animation or any form of 3D, you know, whether it's modeling or our 2D compositing, drawing is a great foundation, and everybody needs to be familiar with it, because you have to have a quick way to get your point across.
Yeah.
You know, you can't just model up something real quick or
right, because everything takes like 10 times longer on the computer.
You have to be able to scribble something down and somebody read it the way that you want them to. So drawing, anybody that doodles, people that watch TV and movies a lot.
Yeah,
if you have a decent work ethic and you're interested in pop culture and things like that, that's great.
Yeah.
You know, or video gamers. Anybody that's connected to the world of animation in some way or digital media, you'd be a good person. You have to be a little weird. And
that also makes sense.
You know, it's really easy to get started in animation and graphics and art, but it's really hard to stick with it, because I mean the meat of animation is tedious little things. You know, it takes a professional animator a week to do a 2 or 3 second bit.
Oh yeah.
And that's a lot.
Yeah.
You think about an 8-hour shift every day, sometimes more, for a week or 2 or 3 to get this tiny piece down. What kind of crazy person does that for years on end?
That reminds me when we met at my other house a couple years ago.
Oh yeah.
And we talked about teaming up to do some sort of stop animation, and nothing ever became of that.
I gotta shout out my son because he won an Oscar for his stop motion Lego animation, best voice acting.
Wait, what?
My son had this, he goes to aftercare because I work long hours and,
right.
So does my wife. But they had this Oscar ceremony for their stop motion class.
Okay.
They just do this little extra, they have these classes in there after school, which sounds awful. They have to go to class after class, but they're fun stuff. Fun things.
But it sounds awesome, like to do stop animation.
Yeah. And
yeah, that sounds amazing.
They did. It was. It's so cool because they showed us a compilation of like all of these stop motion videos that these kids had done. And we actually already knew that he won the Oscar before.
Oh, okay.
We went there, but he didn't. And we left it as a surprise, so we recorded him and stuff.
And so you said it was a voiceover?
Voice acting, yeah.
Okay. That's awesome. That if he can keep it up and get really good, that pays a shit ton of money.
That would be a great job.
Like a lot.
Yeah.
So for the people that are interested in learning, but they can't afford to go to school right away, or strapped for money or whatever, what are some relatively inexpensive or free resources that they can go to for learning about animation and or programs to use?
Well, let me just say that school is kind of not really necessary in this field. You can go, it was a good place for me to start because I had no idea where to start.
Sure.
But you can, check the Google. Even 2D, there are so many resources. YouTube is such a strong resource because everybody wants to get their tutorials out there and get this following. And you can. That's how I learn now is I go on YouTube, or like there are even videos on LinkedIn that I have saved because I'm like, holy shit, like I need to know this stuff.
Yeah.
It's really all about what you know, and if you can find somebody or reach out to somebody, reach out to me. You can probably even reach out to schools, honestly, and just ask and get information. I don't know if they'll do that. They may ask you for some money first. Right. But
you're like, hey, you want to come to school instead?
Yeah, as far as digital animation and programs, Blender. People use Blender actually in studios, and it's totally free. You can animate. It's great for modeling because it's so easy.
On the subject of programs that you can use for making animation, what are some of the ones that you like to use or use on a fairly regular basis?
The ones that not the free ones, right? Or does it matter? Anything that I use. Yeah. So if you honestly don't use any of the free ones because they have your skill level has exceeded what they can do for you, then you can be honest about that. I think that Blender, the one that we were talking about, is good for any skill level. And if I need to model something, that's what I go to. Okay. Because it's so easy. Maya is what I animate in, and that's what I was taught and was told was the studio or the industry standard.
Which one?
Maya.
Maya, okay.
It's an Autodesk product. But now it seems like a lot of people are moving into Cinema 4D, which is a beast of a program, and it's super expensive.
Cinema 4D?
Cinema 4D.
4D.
4D, yes. Which just sounds fancy because it's one above 3D. So
yes, that's one more.
You know it's great. It's so expensive. I only have access to it through
How expensive?
It's around $1,000, I think, just for one seat.
Okay.
It's up there. I would not pay for that.
Sure.
Somebody's gonna have to buy me that.
Is that a reoccurring payment, or is that a one-time thing?
I think that's a one-time thing. So
that's not too bad. Yes,
investment.
Yeah, it is. Definitely caution only for serious people who have put in some mileage with the free programs.
Right, you're right.
So we talked about the programs that you use, and so let's talk about career opportunities. So aside from the dream job of every animator, which is moving to California. Obviously, you got to start somewhere. But I mean, like, when you think about, like, oh, like, you know, if you want to be an animator, like, you know, oh, your only options are, you know, like moving to California and, you know, working for Pixar. You know, that's your only option. Obviously, that's not the only option.
Oh, no.
Would you care to enlighten us as to some of the other options? Obviously, there's stuff like what you do, like working for a news channel.
Absolutely. There's a lot of media jobs out there. Also, Nashville, there are a lot of music companies that you can do music videos for. I actually had a friend that designed, I don't know if he just worked on music videos or he did some logo work for a local company.
Sure.
But there are a lot of people, especially young artists, that need branding.
Uh-huh.
Because I've done plenty of logos for people. You can kind of branch out into different areas, too.
Yeah.
I mean, my end goal is 3D animation, but that's obviously not where I'm at now. 3D character animation. There's really not a lot here unless you do commercials. And I actually am part-time now. We're kind of slow at the moment, but for a local company that does commercials. They're called Market Image.
Okay.
And I had an internship there where they just used me for that. I did my very first commercial of this not so great dog that I made by myself. And he was like riding a hoverboard. He worked for this care clinic.
Okay.
Which it all makes no sense when you say
you
it
have
out
to
loud.
describe it. Sure.
Right, and he had a slushie because.
Well, I mean, that's like describing
Logical,
any
right?
animation ever. Like, especially anything directed by Miyazaki.
Yes.
You're like, all right, you have this weird guy named No Face. Stay with me. Like,
He wears
okay,
a mask.
and he's really
Tall,
weird.
slender guy, mouth in the mud. You'll love it.
Yeah, and then there's this other movie where this fish, like, he loses his dad, and so the whole movie they're trying to find each other, and the dad, he finds this girl that has this really short memory.
Can't remember a thing. Great. You're like, oh, okay. Those people are actually really awesome. The people that pitch the stories.
Yeah.
They must have.
I mean, they must be
a lot of courage.
Yeah.
Before they do that.
How about freelance work? Is there a lot of freelance work out there
there is.
to be had?
A lot of like public broadcasting. I know PBS does a lot of this. Some 2D shows. Everything now is done through Flash animation. Family Guy, all The Simpsons.
They use Flash?
Flash, yeah.
Really?
I think so.
I didn't think anyone used Flash anymore.
Flash animation? Oh, yeah. Bob's Burgers, I know they do.
Like Adobe Flash?
Basically, yeah. Where you have different elements of the character that are, and you kind of puppet them and adjust their joints.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
We're moving in that direction. I could be wrong. Somebody can look that up and comment below.
I'm probably thinking of something else. I mean, Flash has it's changed a lot.
It's evolved a lot.
Yeah,
yes.
because it used to be. I mean, you could do animation with it back in the day when I was learning it, like in high school, like early 2000s. But when I was learning it then, it was primarily used for doing fancy shit on the internet, like
people build websites.
Yeah, for web building. But along came the mobile era, and they had to ditch that.
2D games. Yeah, mobile games are super Flash heavy.
Okay.
But yeah, I can't remember the name of the TV show. I actually took a whole course just on Flash animation.
That's cool.
It was awesome, and I learned that I could do lots of freelance. I haven't yet.
Okay.
But I'd like to get back into it. I think it's just mainly because I don't have any rigs to practice with.
Sure.
And I don't care to make my own, but it's actually pretty lucrative. People are always looking for Flash animators. But one of my old professors does animations for, I wish I could remember the name of it. This dog cartoon on PBS. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's a weird name.
I should know it because PBS makes up for about 90% of the animated stuff that my children watch.
Yeah.
Like they love the shit out
It's
of
your
like
daily programming.
Sid the Science Kid
Yes.
and Dinosaur Train and what else? Is Clifford on there? I know Clifford is on Netflix too, but
it should be still on PBS.
Yeah, just everything on PBS. They
stuff.
eat up, except Caillou. We won't.
No! Don't get us started on Caillou.
Yeah, we won't. We
brat.
won't let them. That chrome dome.
No, they don't need that kind of negativity in their life.
No, they don't.
Nobody does.
So that's that seems like that's what we're looking at is freelance stuff. There's it seems like there's no matter what state you're in, it seems like there's like local stuff.
Well, even big studios, or not necessarily big, but bigger named small studios over in California, Titmouse and Stupid Buddy. I have a couple of friends that work over there, and they've gotten contractual work. So even studios nowadays, will book you for 6 months on this show, and then let you go.
Okay.
It's hard to find a consistent job unless you're way up at the top with a well-established company, I think.
That's a bummer.
It is. It's a little scary.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Anything in art is, it's a risk, of course, but
yeah.
It's definitely a constant search. And even if you do have something that you think is permanent, you still need to be on your toes, because you never know, especially local or smaller animation studios.
Sure.
You could bottom out at any time. It just takes one big contract pulled away from you.
Yeah. So let's switch on to segment 3, which is called the industry. We're going to talk. This is going to be kind of the meat of what we go over this evening. Well, you might not be listeners, during your evening hours. It might be some other time. It might be the morning. It could be the afternoon. Or it could indeed be the evening. And then in that case, it will actually pair up well with what I just said. But I'm very sorry for wasting your time for like the last 10 seconds.
I enjoyed that.
I was boring myself. But no, we're going to. This is still going to be from the eyes of Katie, because she is indeed, out of the two of us, the one who has more experience with animation.
Maybe.
and doing animation. Maybe.
You did all that stop motion. I've seen your work. I'm a big fan.
I feel like that is a sick burn on me, because it is indeed terrible.
You'll never know.
So let's talk a little bit about the traditional animation versus, we're not going to call it CGI. We discussed this for about a half hour before the show. We're not going to call it CGI because Katie told me the reason why people don't really refer to it as CGI in the biz. It's more CG,
not
correct?
Not the full 3 letters, yeah. Normally when I hear somebody refer to it as CG, if you're really friendly with it, it's just 3D.
Okay.
2D and 3D. Traditional is just fine, too. And CG is valid. People are going to know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
But if you want to be the most accurate and use the correct semantics or syntax, you would say traditional versus 3D.
Sure.
Okay. So when we talk about traditional animation versus 3D animation, correct me if I'm wrong, we're talking about stuff like Snow White versus like Toy Story and the Pixar stuff, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I think now it kind of falls into actual 2D and 3D, because like what we were talking about with Flash, so many things, you have your 2D style that looks hand-drawn, but a lot of things are moving towards the computer. It's rare that you'll find something that's purely hand-drawn these days, even if it's drawn digitally and colored.
Sure.
It's still computer-based, but yeah, traditional is definitely referring to 2D, I think up until somewhere in the 2000s. People did it by hand.
Yeah.
Which seems really tedious, but it all is.
Yeah, I have great respect for the people that did traditional animation
So do I.
up until, I mean, like, this is just from a consumer standpoint, because I don't even know what it takes to do either, but I do know that doing the traditional animation, I mean, Snow White that was basically Disney's first movie, right? Aside from Steamboat
Willie.
Willie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the little short. Snow White was actually the first feature film, full-length film for animation. Yeah, and a lot of it was rotoscoped, I believe.
Meaning what?
Basically, you're taking somebody acting and drawing the outline and then creating your character motion from that.
So it's almost like that's also the first
tracing.
mocap.
Yes,
type.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Rotoscope is just, 2D
That's awesome.
mocap.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and it's still such a pleasure to like watch traditional animated movies.
It's beautiful. Actually, there's a movie, you should look it up. It's called Hullabaloo, and it's all these old Disney animators and like really big 2D artists that made all of those classic movies from our childhood.
Okay.
They are making, I don't know how far along they are because I haven't checked it in a minute, but it's beautiful. It's like a steampunk, fully hand-drawn animated movie.
Huh.
And it's in the works right now, so it'll be out maybe at the end of this year, maybe next year.
Okay.
I haven't checked it, but...
So, let's see. What are some of the pros and cons of traditional animation versus 3D? And can you give us some groundbreaking films, either objectively or subjectively, that used traditional animation?
Oh, they use traditional. I didn't read that part. I think some of the...
If you don't have any off the top of your head, then that's cool. I know that it's like a two-part question almost, but they almost have like nothing to do with each other. So I must have been like,
just combine
I don't know what I was smoking when I wrote this question. But yeah, so we'll answer the first one first. What are some from a animator's perspective? What do you have some pros and cons of animating animating traditionally versus 3D?
Well, I'm 3D based, so I'm kind of biased.
Sure.
Because I can't draw very well. So,
Okay.
I mean, to me, that just seems like a crazily daunting process,
Yeah.
you know? A lot of times, and what they used to do when they were busting out, like, a film a year, you know, in their heyday at Disney, because it was just in such high demand, you'd have, this is the setup anyway, I believe, lead animators that will make the keyframes,
Okay.
which are the main poses and the big poses that you recognize, and then they'll pass it along to, you know, a lesser animator, and they will fill in the in-betweens,
Okay.
is what you call them. And the breakdown poses, which is like in the middle. If you have your... Oop. I didn't
Just
do
go
that.
ahead and
I knew there
smack
was a
yourself
mic
with the
there.
microphone.
If you have your hand up and then put your hand down, you know, you've got that middle pose.
Sure.
So you've got to get those strong poses, and then somebody comes in and fills in
Okay.
the middle. I think it would be nice to do it that way. I think in 3D, I haven't worked at a studio, but I'm pretty sure that's the way it works anyway. You have those key poses, but the computer really fills in a lot of that for you, which is fantastic. That's just the way it's programmed. If you have a key pose up here with your hand up and then a key pose with your hand down, it kind of automatically fills it in. It's more of a linear look, you know.
Okay.
Traditional, I think you have more control over how it looks in the arc of the movement, because we never move in a line.
Sure.
You know, if you really think about your body,
Yeah.
your head, when you move it back and forth, it dips a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So you have full control when you're drawing something. You have to go back in and manipulate and tweak those things when you're doing 3D animation. So there are pros and cons. You know,
It seems like they're both, as far as a quote unquote con, for both of them would be that they're time consuming.
Oh my gosh, yes.
But in different ways. Like it seems like from what you've discussed and told us so far is that with traditional animation, it seems like you have to be really good at drawing. And you're going to be doing a lot of drawing, right?
Some con that we can talk about for traditional is staying on model, because when you draw something, and you can kind of see it. I've kind of noticed in Aladdin and The Little Mermaid, if you go back and watch those, the characters kind of phase in and out of what they're supposed to look like. Okay. Because it's different people drawing them, and you're going to have a different aesthetic. Anywhere at any point in time, you could have a frame that somebody drew that's just a little weird. Right. By the way, never pause a Disney movie because
right, because they're gonna make those goofy faces.
Yeah, Gaston is my favorite.
Mid-coitus faces.
They're beautiful, really.
Yeah.
And they really make the movie. But staying on model, when you have a 3D model, he's good to go. And you don't have to worry about that at all. So I think that's a definite con of traditional animation is constantly making sure that you know what your character's supposed to look like. Right. And that you draw it correctly. Yeah. You really can't skimp on detail when it comes to stuff like that because people will notice and they'll make a YouTube video about it.
Sure. Are there any pros for traditional animation?
Traditional? That's a good question. And again, I'm biased.
Biased because you're more of a fan of
I really lean
3D
towards 3D, yeah. Okay. That's just always been my preference.
Well, if there's no pros for traditional, it's just all garbage. It's crap. Like movies like Aladdin and The Little Mermaid,
nothing,
and Snow White, and Peter Pan. They all suck. And they should, if you own them, you should just throw them in the garbage. Especially those rare VHS copies with the penises on the front.
I have that.
Yeah. You should just throw them all in the garbage, and don't let your kids watch them because just subject them to the better, nicer looking ones.
So. Yeah. No, yeah. I love those movies.
No, don't you dare do that. I am being facetious for the people that don't pick up on sarcasm.
Totally sarcastic.
Please watch those movies and then force your kids to watch them.
Do it now. Buy those Black Diamond VHS from eBay because,
Oh, my God. They're so expensive.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. I have one Black Diamond. I don't.
Was it $100 million?
No, it's like 20.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not too bad.
I don't know. Pros. I'm sure there are.
I think a big pro... I guess it doesn't come from the during the actual work. It comes more after. Okay. But especially from your peers, and of course your viewers, where you can educate them to the point of what it takes to produce traditional animation. You get more of an intrinsic and extrinsic. Is that the opposite of intrinsic?
Yes.
Maybe.
Yes, it is.
It seems like there's more reward and pats on the back for being able to pull off that kind of animation.
Maybe.
Even though I don't know if we see a whole lot of traditional animation anymore.
No, hand drawn, no. Yeah. And that's what we were talking about. People still.
They revived it for The Princess and the Frog.
Yes, and that was beautiful.
Yeah, it was.
That was exciting.
Go Black Princesses!
That's really a great movie. And I think it was a good choice. It would not have been the same if they had kept in the Rapunzel style,
Sure.
It really needed to be thrown back because it is a classic story, and great Black Princess, go for it.
For sure. Okay, so this is a good one. What are so 3D animation it's not new, but it's relatively new compared to animation as a whole, considering that Snow White was introduced in the 40s or 50s?
Very late 40s, I think. Yeah.
So compared to how long animation has been around, just in general, 3D animation is pretty new to us. What?
90s?
Well, yeah, I think that's like 94 is when.
Toy Story came out in 90.
94 or 96, I feel like.
I feel like it's more like 91, but I could be thinking of something else.
Either way.
90s.
What is it?
Oh, the 90s. You're right. It's 95.
I didn't say 95. I said 94, 96.
That's the average of the two that you said.
It's splitting the difference. That's what that is right there.
It wasn't
you split
91,
the difference,
95.
sister. So what do we have to thank for 3D animation? For like, what did they introduce to us that was like groundbreaking? Do you know of anything?
Oh, I mean, it's just
like what could we do with 3D animation that we couldn't do with the traditional stuff?
I think that's something that is a good difference between traditional animation and then taking us into 3D and CG is the fact that you can get so much more realism out of it. You know, I mean, if you're watching 2D, you're watching a cartoon, but 3D, the motion that you get and the way that you can manipulate your rigs and your characters, you can get a lot of realistic qualities in an animated character like that. And especially moving forward in the advancements that we've had since the 90s and the early 80s when we started computers, and it was like behind closed doors that people were figuring it out and being meticulous. It's just grown so much to where you can barely tell the difference. You know, you think of things like The Walking Dead, like Planet of the Apes, where you have these humanoid apes and they have so much life and realism to them. It's just crazy.
I feel like we owe Andy Serkis and his team of mocap people like a debt of gratitude.
The behind the scenes on that.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Yeah, that man and the team that he works with, I swear to God, they are a gift from Jesus herself, because he's he's done such great work, with Gollum and Caesar, and he's been
the list goes on.
He's done a lot of stuff that I am totally blanking on right now.
That's okay. Yeah, absolutely. And the motion capture helps a lot. That's something that is really heavily incorporated now. But I think the goal in 3D nowadays is for you not to notice.
Sure.
There's so much, like Gravity with Sandra Bullock. She's in a little tiny room with all this green around her, and she's just rotating, and she has a space helmet on, but that's about it. You know, like, you don't know those things, and you don't think to notice because people do their job so well. And it's just night and day between traditional and 3D and that.
Oh yeah 3D has obviously expedited a lot of the processes that would have normally taken traditional animation to accomplish, and they do it in a very shorter time period, and they do it more effectively and with making it more pretty. Is there anything that an average consumer might not know about what 3D has come and stepped in and has done better, or has made animators' jobs easier?
I think the earliest example that I can think of is actually Beauty and the Beast, and I'm repping the shirt today.
We are talking about the
traditional one. Yeah.
I almost brought up Beauty and the Beast when we were talking a few minutes ago about traditional animation and like the pros. I mean, this would have been from like a consumer viewer standpoint, but I mean the remake was great. But the original, just some of the shots in there are just absolutely breathtaking. Like when she goes into the library for the first time, and you have that giant shot of her is just the size of like an ant on your TV screen, but everything else is just the frontal view of just that giant wall of books.
It is breathtaking.
And then there's the groundbreaking shot of the dance scene,
The ballroom.
in the ballroom with the camera panning, basically it kind of starts, up at the very top, and then it sweeps down. And I don't think a whole lot of animation had done that before up until
That's
that point.
3D, right?
Yeah. Okay.
That ballroom scene was 3D, so
Okay.
that's kind of what I was segueing into. That's something that would have taken them so long, and then we're talking about consistency with drawing and
Sure.
getting the full rotation. It's so hard to get something to fully rotate in 2D, and it
Yeah.
makes you want to tear your hair out. But
Yeah. I can imagine.
to make that in 3D and then just to animate the characters in it, so much faster.
Yeah.
I think that was really the start of it, and just realizing how you can use 3D to your advantage.
Cool. Well, moving on from the 3D traditional talk. So on a large scale project, like a full length animated movie, how would you say the tasks are delegated? If you don't know, that's cool, but because I know that you haven't exactly worked. You're not in the biz
Right,
yet,
not
but,
that far.
but you will be. I mean, obviously, there are several teams
Yes.
to handle different
You've
things.
seen credit scrolls.
Yes, you have to wait 20 minutes to get to the end of them.
Because we're gonna be up there someday.
Yeah,
I make my kids watch, and I explain every time, like, that's gonna be me someday, and that could be you if you want to. You have to pay respects to everybody.
yeah, of course. So yeah, what are some of the tasks, and like how are they delegated?
It all starts with a story.
Okay.
You have your
That's such like a Disney thing to say. It all starts with this story. When you wish upon a star.
Those people have brilliant minds, especially when we're talking about Pixar and any movie that's made you feel something. Like those people.
Every time I feel
really
something.
in tune. I know, right? It's so hard not to. You get invested in it, but you have your story artists that come up with the story. They're constantly working, and then you have your team of storyboard artists, which are those 2D. This is why drawing is important, because your 2D artists whip up all of these drawings, and it's just walls and walls of drawings. These are also the people that are good at pitching and really animated and fun people.
Yeah.
They're probably the coolest people.
Okay.
Inside and outside, because they have to come alive and tell the story and act it out and show you what they've drawn and move along, and really bring the story artist's vision to life. There's a really good example with Toy Story and the little army guy scene when they're going down the stairs. Watching the storyboard artist pitch that, it's just cool.
Yeah.
I would recommend watching it.
Okay. Is that like a special feature on the Toy Story disc or something?
That's a good question.
Or is
I
it just
don't
floating
own it.
out there?
It is floating, yeah. You can YouTube that.
Cool.
It's super fun. But after you get the story, in terms of 3D, you have your modelers, your 3D modelers, and they'll create everything. You have your environmental artists, which either do, sometimes it's 2D and painted, and sometimes it's 3D. After you get your models, you have texture, and rigging, which are kind of two different things. I really don't know which comes first. But you have animators like me who take the rigs, and actually when you're working on them, like Merida in Brave, for example, the artist won't be working with flowy clothing or that massive mop she has on her head.
All right.
All that realistic hair, because it just slows down your processing time.
Sure.
So they'll be working with a bald character and clothing, and it's fun and it's worth it, but it's kind of not as exciting when you break it down, because you aren't getting the full effect. It's not lit properly, and there's no elaborate background or anything like that. So animators, and then once the animator finishes, it goes to dynamics and special effects. They get the cloth working and her hair going, and when you render that, you take it to lighting. It's a big process. And then post-production, which is color correction, all of the effects, you know, if you have particles moving and whatnot. So it's a lot of people when
Yeah.
you break it down.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, yeah, it seems like it wouldn't really make much sense to have a small amount of people working.
no.
But wasn't that kind of the case with Toy Story 1? Like,
Yes.
wasn't Pixar like hanging on by a shoestring budget, and like their future depended on
You're
the
absolutely
success
right.
of
And
that movie?
Yes, and I actually think that we were both right in that they started working on it in like 1991, and it took them about 4 years
Yeah.
to do it because they had so many problems. I know there's a story out there that they almost deleted their whole archive of animation.
That sounds.
But somebody
that sounds
had it
familiar.
backed up. Thank goodness. Yeah, somebody pressed delete one
Oh
day
my god.
at the tail end of it. But yeah, those guys were meticulous
Yeah.
because they had to work all the bugs out. You know, this is new software for them. I don't think it was a big team. I think you're right. Pixar at that point in time was just a little speck on the map,
Yeah.
contracted by Disney, you know, not knowing if it would become a big thing or not because it was so brand new. And I think at that point before then, they just had like little hands and things. And Tron, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, if you go back and watch Toy Story now, it's I mean it holds up.
It does hold up.
But that being said, there are a few moments where it does look like what you'll see in like animated movie outtakes where it's not completely rendered, or I don't know what nomenclature you want to use.
Rendered's good.
Where it doesn't look completely fully rendered. That's some of the shots in Toy Story. Like I recently watched it for the first time, or Charlie's first time watching it, my son, and and he really enjoyed it. But I was like watching it, and maybe it was because it was on regular DVD and not Blu-ray, but because I have a television that does not do DVDs very well at all.
Oh.
Like it makes them not look great.
Oh, that's sad.
Yes. So that could have been a possibility. But anyways, so obviously when it comes time to completing a project like a movie, obviously it's going to vary as far as how long it's going to take.
Right.
Because, you know, we could wait, you know, like 3 years for a movie when they announce it, or like 3 or 4 years for like the sequel to something.
Yeah.
Or we could end up waiting like 18 years for a sequel to The Incredibles. I can't remember how long we've been waiting, but it's been a hot minute. I think it came out in early 2000s.
You're right.
Like maybe 2002, 2003.
That's what I was thinking, 2 or 3.
Yeah, and here it is, 2018. So yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's wild.
So So say if they don't. I mean, obviously, Pixar they'd just been working on other stuff. So say they started working on something. What would you say like an average duration is? Would you say like maybe 3 or 4 years, something like that?
I would give it anywhere from 2 to 4 years, depending on how long you've invested in the story, if the characters come easy to you, or if they already exist, like The Incredibles.
Yeah.
I don't know how long they actually were in production of that movie.
Yeah.
And when they decided to recreate it, I have no idea.
Yeah, because it does look a little different from the original. Just going from the trailer for the sequel, comparing it to the original movie, and that's not just because technology has obviously increased over the past 17 years. It also looks like they were maybe going for a slightly different, like more polished style to it.
Definitely. I think they wanted to stay on point. And looking back, you know, when I look back at my own projects, you see all those imperfections. So I'm sure they wanted to fix those and clean them up and make them fresh again.
Yeah.
I would say probably 2 to 4 years.
Yeah.
For something like that. Yeah, that sounds fair.
Let's just for a second talk about like the future of animation. Like, as far as the evolution of it, do you have any what's the word for this? Any ideas or predictions about where animation might go in the future? Like as far as what techniques animators might use to produce animated movies or TV shows or whatever, or just anything to do with animation. Can you see into the future?
I have looked into, like current technology and latest technology, partly by choice, partly force of class.
Mm-hmm.
There are things that would make our life easier, and there are things that are kind of scary. Something that is new.
It seems like virtual reality is kind of like one of the next like big steps.
It is, and there's actually technology.
You probably weren't going there, and I just interjected like an a-hole. So
that was my second point. So we can start there.
What's your first point?
We can move on to second.
No. Cover your first point.
First point is textures. I saw this one device that you can actually just scroll this. It's like a scanner, and take like your table, for example. You can scroll it over, and then it will create a texture for you, a very realistic texture. You can put something in different lighting and take it, and it'll just like create it based off of what you're giving it and the variables.
Friggin' awesome.
It's almost instantaneous.
Wow.
It's just cool.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's way easier than making a texture yourself.
Yeah.
But what we were talking about with virtual, there was I watching? It's like something, the little mocap where you have all the dots on your face.
Right.
Somebody had that, and it was in real time animating this model and this face. So I would imagine that would be something that's going to be developed is more real time. I mean, imagine if you had a very well rendered human, or even just people that do like mocap and body acting for a 3D part, like Gollum or something like that. How cool it would be, and how fast and easy it would be to just have him do that, and it instantly translates to that character.
My precious animation.
Yes, exactly.
Juicy fish.
Little to no cleanup, and how realistic that would be to get all of the subtleties from all of the actors that act for you.
How do you feel, and do you see it having a big future regarding, there's a few different terms thrown around for it, like when they did the regeneration for Princess Leia's face at the very end of Star Wars Rogue One. How do you feel about that kind of animation? Because, I mean, I feel like it's some sort of animation because you're taking somebody's face that isn't here anymore and putting it
definitely
somewhere else. Like,
it's an interesting concept.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like taking samples from somebody's voice and then generating words from that, and it's kind of scary in the sense that you can do somebody dead, and bring them back to life, like essentially just creating an entire character from somebody like that.
Sure.
It also could, I would guess that you would have to sign off on that, but using lesser known actors and then creating this character of like an Angelina Jolie or something, and having her sign off on it. Like, what are we gonna do with that, and what are people's brains gonna take that to?
Yeah. Are there in the animation world, are there ethical boundaries surrounding, like, especially doing Carrie Fisher's face on Princess Leia, making her look young again? And they did that after she died.
I would imagine, especially for that they took the greatest of care and did that with the utmost respect for her as a person and as a character. And to all those fans, I would hope that people would use that respectfully and
right. Yeah, I mean, like, there's there's so much cynicism now,
Yeah.
but there's also so much love surrounding, the Star Wars franchise and the Disney franchise and stuff
Right.
like that. So you're gonna, I feel like you're always gonna have like butting heads with stuff like that. Like, oh, they're just trying to appease everyone, and they shouldn't be doing that because she's dead, and then you have like the people on the other side that are like, if this technology didn't exist, they couldn't create that ending to that
Right.
movie. And in my opinion, like, it didn't take me out of the movie, mostly because I was already taken out of the movie because I wasn't a huge fan of Rogue One. I didn't
Okay.
dislike it, but also by that point, I kind of checked out. But I did like that ending. I did do, as far as the facial regeneration, like I said, I don't know the technical name for it, but I did think that they did a pretty good job with that. So that's kind of my 2 cents.
Right. Well, I think it's good that they took the risk and did that.
Yeah.
Because you're right, it wouldn't have had the same effect and impact, and the ending would have been completely different. So
Right.
you just have to ignore people that speak
Yeah.
negatively of what you do. It's always a risk doing things and making bold moves like that, but we wouldn't be anywhere if we didn't have that.
Yeah, exactly.
And you always have to have fresh minds, fresh ideas, or else we can't progress. We're constantly moving forward because we have people with new ideas that aren't afraid to say them and get a yes or get a no. I hope to get a lot of no's in my career because that means that I'm getting myself, out there and trying. And if I don't, then what am I doing?
Sure.
So I think with stuff like that and advances in technology, we can only try them and see what sticks.
Yeah.
Even if people don't like them.
Sure. When we were coming up with talking points for the show, one of the few ones that you actually contributed, and that's not a slam at all. I wanted you to
You made
to
a great
contribute.
list.
I wanted you to contribute as much as you wanted to, but just by happenstance, when I sent you the list of talking points, you were like, you actually covered a lot of stuff that I would have already naturally brought up.
Yeah, you did.
But one of the things that you brought up that I didn't think of, that I don't think I would have felt comfortable talking about if it was me and like a few other dudes, is women in the industry.
Yeah. I actually am kind of a nerd, and I listen to podcasts myself.
And you were also a woman
And
in
I'm
the
a woman.
industry. You're a
I
woman.
know women in the industry.
Yeah,
which
you
is
are.
fantastic. I'm used to being with the guys though, especially coming from a music background where I did percussion and
Sure.
like that's just all guys.
Yeah,
That's
the
way it is.
men's, they like to hit on the drums.
And that's cool, I'm fine with being with guys. There's a group, Women in Animation, and it's just big collaboration of females and embracing ourselves and supporting each other in a field where 75% of employment is men.
Mm-hmm.
And the higher up you go, the less and less females you see. But Women in Animation have a goal, 50-50 by 2025, which is fantastic. I think that, what's the percentage? Over half right now of animation programs have female students in them. But when you get to the industry, it dwindles so much, and we're cut in half, basically.
Sure.
I don't know why that is. I don't know if employers
just part of the
aren't
weed out
seeking.
process.
Maybe. I don't know if it's intimidation. I don't know if it's just
Could be.
feeling like we won't be treated equal. But there is a wide margin of and difference between the amount of men and the amount of women in the industry.
So something that I just thought of, not to say that I wasn't listening to what you were saying, I realized that as I was saying that, I was like, that could potentially sound like I wasn't listening to what you were just saying right now. I was just waiting for my turn to talk, which would be quite ironic for what we're talking about right now.
Way to go.
Anyways, so the goal, you said 2025.
Yeah.
They want it to be 50-50.
Equal, yes.
What would you say their approach to accomplishing that goal is? Is it to more from the beginning, like the social outreach to women to get them to realize that, hey, women, it's okay to be interested in this field that's primarily dominated by men? Or is it to kind of combat the current workplace, or is it a mixture of both?
It's probably a mixture of both, but I'd say that the beginning and catching them early is a good starting point, because it's intimidating. I think culinary world has a lot of this going on as well, where there are a lot of female chefs in the beginning, but professional cooks and kitchens, you see a lot more men.
Mm-hmm.
So it may be an intimidation factor, but I think that having a union like this, where there are people that support you and encourage you to go out and apply for these jobs and push for them, I think it's just a matter of women applying and thinking that they can and can hold their own. So I feel like that's the point of this movement, is to just encourage people from the start.
Yeah. I think that's a big thing. I mean, it's also important to battle our current situation in the workforce to try and level it out where we are now, as far as the people working in the field. But as you were just saying, it's we were kind of hitting on, you're an animator, I am in web development. And it's kind of coincidental that we're talking about this right now, because just last week, one of my teachers gave a presentation on the history of women in computer programming. And so this closely ties into animation because it's practically the same. Women are the OGs when it comes to computer programming.
Really?
The first programs were written by women. The term debugging was coined by a lady named Grace Hopper. Cool. Because she found a bug in a giant computer tower. And
literally?
She literally found a bug, opened the screen, took that bug out, and she was like, I debugged the computer, and then the term debugging was coined.
Wow, that's
and
cool.
It is still a term we use today on a daily basis, unfortunately.
So do we.
Yes. Women are the shit, because we would have fucking nothing without them. And what happened was in the 50s, starting in the 50s, when marketing was hitting its stride, and I say that with a little bit of resentment. When they were getting very notorious, they started when they started introducing like the personal computer in like the late 70s, early 80s. Started introducing the personal computer, the Atari, stuff like that. They marketed those towards men and boys, and women and girls all of a sudden were under the impression that those weren't really for them, that they should be interested in stuff like gardening and cooking for their husbands and children, and they all of a sudden don't really belong in the workplace. And all of a sudden, I'm doing a big X with my hands right now. That's what the graph did, is the men in the computer-related field, whether it's computer programming, web design, digital animation, anything to do with computers, it shot up when it comes to men being interested, and women just tanked. And that's basically the reason, is because of marketing. Other people, like to not necessarily disagree, but they think that it might have to do with a few other things too. But I think the underlying problem was who these new consumer level products were being marketed to. So that's pretty much the reason why these fields, up until recently, have been dominated by men. Now, in my class right now, it's 50-50. men and women, and it was like that when it started. Like, I mean, we started with like 25 students, and we are down to 13.
That sounds right.
Because web development is not easy.
No.
I'm surprised I'm still here because it is hard. But I don't know if proud is the right word to use, because it sounds kind of pandering. I guess excited that there are several women in my class that are so smarter than I am when it comes to programming. Like, they just catch on so much quicker, and I'm like, fuck yeah, like, goddamn right, you're smarter than I am, because like I feel like more people need to see stuff like this, that it's not like just for men. Like, it's very important to have diversity, and
Right.
And stuff like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the goal of that movement, is just to make everyone aware, make women aware that they can go out and pursue a career in animation, and that they won't be alone. Nickelodeon's doing a great job of that. I think that they're almost, if not actually 50-50 in their workplace.
That's great.
They have a wonderful environment for their women. And, yeah, everybody wants to feel represented. It's like our Disney princesses. All of their ethnicities. You wanna relate to somebody and not feel alone. And
but like a badass princess that can, like, be beautiful but also kick lots of ass.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's our next movie.
It's like the best of both worlds. Chill it out, take it slow, then you rock out the show.
There you go.
Yep.
Did you make that up on the fly? That was good.
That's Hannah Montana.
Oh, sorry.
I never watched the show, but
Sure.
Oh, you got me. I'm a Miley Cyrus fan. I celebrate her entire catalog. When she swung back and forth naked, except for the boots, on that wrecking ball, singing wrecking ball.
Yeah.
It's just
Tears.
Very liberating.
Lots of tears.
That would be a very weird reaction to the video. So segment number 4, and we'll keep this short because we are closing in on a long episode. What are some of your favorite types of animations or animation or favorite animated films?
Oh, Nemo, of course. We talked about that.
Sure.
It's inspiration. And to piggyback that, Finding Dory.
Uh-huh.
Because Finding Dory as a child and tiny baby, you didn't know you needed that in your life until you saw it.
Yeah. And plus, Ellen DeGeneres is the shit.
Right. I mean, you can't not like that movie. It exceeds all expectations.
Yeah.
I was actually nervous about it when we went to go see it.
Me too.
But, spoiler, when Dory finds her parents,
Mm-hmm.
all 4 of my family members were in tears, and the whole audience just erupted in this like emotional relief and
I actually
joy.
have goosebumps right now. And I've seen the fucking movie.
That's my goal, and it's moments like that drive me, forward and
Yeah.
help me understand that my awful move to somewhere where cost of living is super high is for that moment in my life. Some cool things that I have seen before that we haven't touched on, because animation hasn't always been for kids.
Mm-hmm.
I actually went to a little movie night at the Belcourt Theater, and they were playing Ralph Bakshi's Heavy Traffic.
What was that?
Ralph Bakshi.
Oh, I thought you said Ralph Bakshi. I was like,
Bakshi.
What is Bakshi?
He's a really controversial animator. All of his stuff is in 2D, but he actually produced the first X-rated animated feature film, which is Felix the Cat. I don't know if you've heard of Felix.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I have, but
yeah, he's a raunchy little character.
Okay.
And like I said, it's X-rated, so I mean, like,
sure,
fill in the blank. But Heavy Traffic.
Literally.
Heavy Traffic is human based. It's not character. It's not like animal based. And it's just really raw and gritty, and it's based on characters in the city and just going through their life. I think somebody gets shot at one point, and
yikes.
it's just it makes you like feel, and it disturbs you a lot. And I think it's styles like that and people like that really push boundaries that I don't know, it just makes you think about animation in a totally different way.
Yeah.
Because I think in the beginning it wasn't for children.
Interesting.
Old Max Fleischer cartoons with Bimbo the dog, and the origins of Betty Boop, where she was actually this French poodle before she was a spin-off human. Like, she was seducing him, and he was all into it. You know, like that wasn't kid related at all.
Oh yeah.
Stuff like that. I think if you really dig and find little gems that maybe you wouldn't think of when you're naming off things like Dory and The Little Mermaid and stuff, really get me going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we were talking about stuff like Bob's Burgers and Family Guy and stuff. I think we started talking about it before we hit record on the podcast. What are your thoughts on those? Like, I mean, when those types of shows first started, like obviously like The Simpsons was kind of like the
little filler
start.
Cartoon.
What?
It was a little filler cartoon.
Oh yeah.
In the middle of like a variety show or something.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
But those the shows like The Simpsons and Family Guy and South Park and stuff like that. They've always been the shows to like push boundaries. Like, do you think that those shows are like kind of comedic genius? Because on surface level, like South Park is like just a disgusting show.
I love South Park.
But if you look past like, and it's almost like defending rap music. Like contemporary rap music, it's like, no, you have to like watch South Park, and people are just like automatically turned off because you just look at South Park for 5 minutes and there's just diarrhea everywhere.
Yeah, you're right.
And someone just sees that and they're like, I'm not watching this garbage. But there's actually like comedic genius behind these kinds of shows that you really it's interesting because it really appeals to the people that are willing to look past the surface level of a show like that, of an animated show.
And there's a reason why those shows have stayed on season after season and are still in running or in syndication on air. I mean, yeah, they're crude and whatnot, but they really hit a wide range of topics and emotions, and it's really relatable at some point in time. You know?
Sure.
You may not like every episode, but like, I don't know. There's something about The Simpsons, and I think a lot of people are getting tired of it by now because how many like themes can you write?
Right.
They've been on for so long, and they're doing fantastic, but it's kind of like they do push boundaries, like Roseanne, Married with Children. Those shows are crude as far as broadcast goes, but they are something different, and they're not perfect, and we can relate to their imperfections, you know, which makes them lovable in their own crude and awful way. Yeah, I think we hold on to that, and I think that we like seeing people fail and get dirty because we do that every day, all the time,
Yeah.
Ramble.
Oh, that was great.
Good.
Like, yeah.
Nice soundbite.
I mean, I wanted your opinion on those kinds of shows because we spent, all this time talking about, the process of digital animation and, an insider's perspective.
Right.
And obviously we were eventually going to actually touch on movies and stuff. I tried my best to not make this a movie episode.
Sure.
But I knew that inevitably we were going to reach the point of talking about movies. But I also, I think it's important to touch on the animated stuff geared towards adults.
Yeah.
Or children too, if you're very ballsy and you're a little liberal with your children's viewing.
It's pretty fair to classify that as family programming. regardless of what age category you put that in.
Right.
It's on TV. It's prime time.
Right. My parents did kind of a half-assed job of preventing me from watching stuff like The Simpsons. Well, I mean, when I was a kid, The Simpsons were pretty much the only thing until South Park came along, and then at that point, they just given up. They were like, "You're like 15. We're done with parenting you."
Yeah.
But when I was like, 8, 9, 10, and The Simpsons were kind of like hitting their stride, they'd come in and be like, "What are y'all watching?" Like me and my brother, and be like, we're waiting for more of more. Oh my God, words. the talk show Maury
Povich.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God, why was it so hard to say?
That's a hard name.
I think I'm getting a little strokey
I
here.
won't judge you. I know the signs.
But we wait for that to end and be like, yeah, and then we're gonna watch The Simpsons and be like, my ass, you're gonna watch The Simpsons, and like we'd turn it off and then wait for him to leave and then turn it back
pretty
on.
Contradictory for him to say my ass and then not let you watch The Simpsons.
Exactly, which is why these techniques never worked out for them, and we always got the opportunity to watch what we wanted to.
Screen time.
But we turned out fine. So,
yeah.
But I think this is a pretty good place to stop.
Okay.
I feel like we've covered everything that I wanted to cover. Is there anything, any last remarks or anything else that any final words that you'd like to add that you feel like we didn't cover?
I guess just as far as being an animator, any place is a good place to start, and connection with people and getting in with a group of people, really working your social game, that's a big part of it. So if you're interested at all, find somebody, reach out, just take a step. That's really all it takes.
Network your ass off.
You're right.
Katie, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on for this episode.
Yeah, thank you.
And I do invite you back in the future to talk about other things.
Movies.
We can talk about movies. We can talk about whatever you want.
Awesome.
I will let you choose because you were a fantastic guest.
Thank you.
So thank you so much. And thank you to our listeners for if you made it this far.
Congratulations.
Also to anyone new that is listening, I'm sure that some of Katie's family has been listening, and I do appreciate you taking the time to listen, to download the podcast or subscribe. We really like subscribers, and we also really like people that go in and rate the podcast. We have all kinds of stuff out there. We have social media where you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We have a website where you can listen to all our episodes if you'd like to kind of test them out before you hit the subscribe button. We also have a store where you can go buy stuff. You can find that on our website. But like I was saying, if you want to help out the podcast in the very best way possible, the best thing to do is wherever you download your podcast, whether it's iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, wherever, to get on there and write us a rating and review, because it helps with their algorithm as far as when you search for like geeky podcasts or stuff that has to do with, geek media related material. If we are highly rated or if we have a lot of reviews written about us, then we will show up first and foremost rather than way down at the bottom, which is kind of where we're at now, but that's cool because we've only really been around for a little over a year. Katie, thanks again so much for coming on. I appreciate you being here and talking about animation with us. We will see y'all next time. Bye.